Hi there, good morning, everyone. Oh, you can do better than that. I can see you. I just can't hear you. Good morning, everyone. That's more high five. That was low two before then. That's terrible. Thank you for inviting me here. It's a huge honor and privilege to be here, especially kicking off the first one. No pressure. There's lots of you. Yes, as Ali said, Steve Scott from Lloyds Banking Group. Lloyds, we're a retail bank in the UK. We have about 66,000 colleagues across the UK, predominantly about 98% UK based. And my role there, Head of Strategic Workforce Planning and Workforce Analytics, which is just a mouthful, isn't it? I get fed up of saying that. If you've got a better name for that title, let me know. Send it via LinkedIn. But I've been doing that role for about 2 or 3 years now. And 2 or 3 years ago, I was sat at a conference, having just got that job, just like you are, thinking, what is this? What have I let myself in for? What is this all about? And entered this world that I had no idea even existed. But over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been building that team out. Started with about 4 or 5, now to about 20, having some great successes, lots of failures as well. But why am I telling you that? I guess because I'm here not as somebody who's been doing this for 20 years, or somebody, a consultant background or anything like that, but as a practitioner, like many of you in the room today. So somebody who's just working this out as we're going along. And so the things that I'm going to talk to you about today are really my learns from the past 2 or 3 years. The scars are still sore. So I've tried to shape this, not in a way that I'm going to tell you the answers, but actually trying to give you some of the tips and hints that I've learned, picked up, wish I'd known 2 or 3 years ago. Is that okay? Good. And I can't stand up on a stage. I need to move around, so I hope that's okay. Make sure that you're awake. But before we start, why even bother? Why should we even be here today? Well, it's all about, for me, unlocking the value of trust. So 92% of employees are open to the collection of data about themselves, but only if it provides personal benefits. A lot of the time we hear that colleagues, employees just don't want to share data with us. If you look on your LinkedIn profile, I bet you're telling the LinkedIn population more about your skills and your background than you are your own organization. And that's because there's no fair exchange of value. We're quite happy as consumers to give big organizations lots of data about ourselves, Netflix and Amazon, so they can recommend products. But in the workplace, that doesn't seem to happen. And so there's a resistance from colleagues to give us data. But if we can show them that we're going to give something back, if they tell us what their ambitions are, if they tell us what their skills are, if they can tell us how they want their career to map out, then we can start to push learning to them, we can start to recommend roles that become available, and things start to evolve. 30% of business leaders think that they are very confident that they are using workforce data in a highly responsible way. That means 70% don't. I'm not an analyst for that reason. So yeah, that's a problem. There's concerns. Colleagues will give us data if they think they're going to get something back. Leaders are not sure that we're using the data in a responsible way. 64% of employees state that the recent scandals about the misuse of consumer data have made them concerned that employee data could be misused. We've seen all of this stuff, Cambridge Analytica, etc., the misuse of data. And so starting off on your journey with ethics, data privacy, right at the beginning, embedded into your operating model is critical. But if we get all of that right, if we build that trust with our colleagues, if we build the trust with our business leaders, if we use data ethically and responsibly, then the estimate is that there's $3 trillion worth of value that exists in public limited companies by using workforce data responsibly. Now, all of our organizations want a slice of that pie, I'm sure. But if we don't have the trust, then it won't happen. So I'm just looking here. I asked one of my team, I kind of came up with the slide content, and I said, can you just make this a little bit whizzy? And I'm just noticing how he's gone really crazy with the animation, so apologies for that. I think he's after a rise. So yeah, as I said, this what I'm going to talk to you about is a framework that I've developed. It's kind of how I get my thinking in some kind of order based on my lessons learned. It's not a LinkedIn article that I'm going to regurgitate, but they are available if you want to use them. Consultants are available, vendors are available, they're outside, they'll talk to you as well. There's lots of models, there's lots of frameworks. So mine is just one. Now, when you look around, you'll see often models suggesting that there's an incremental road to maturity. Have you seen those? You build up, do this first, do that second, do that third, and on you go. Nonsense. If the one thing that you can learn from today is to forget that, that would be great, I'd be happy. It just doesn't work like that. There isn't enough time. There isn't enough time. Investment is so short and precious that you just won't secure any if it's taking you too long to achieve a return on investment. So I'm suggesting that actually you look at it on organic growth. You have a vision of the end state, but you don't work incrementally to get there in a waterfall fashion. Just work agilely. Pick off different things that you can do concurrently. You'll get there a lot faster, you'll develop quick wins, and you'll be more successful. So the framework that I'll talk through, and again, not giving you the answers, but I'm actually more framing the questions that you need to consider, because the answers are going to depend on you, your team, your organization, its own operating model, its culture, the way it's structured. But essentially, these are the building blocks that I think are wireframe, if you like, for creating a successful, high-performing team. And by high-performing, I mean a team that is driving real impact, whether that be economic impact, true return on investment, a cultural impact, or a workplace impact, improving the employee experience. So it starts with the operating model. And this is where you need to think about where your teams sit within your organization. Do you sit in HR? I'm assuming that most of you do, but that's not always necessarily the case. What are your reporting lines? Who do you report into? Who are your direct bosses that you need to keep happy? What's your scope? Are you an MI team that's converting into an analytics team? What does the culture of your organization feel like in terms of put their control, independence, and guidance? Are you working for an organization that likes to keep control at the center, and they tell the business areas or the divisions or the regions or whatever your structure what they need to do? Or is there independence? Is there a small center and lots of kind of independent business units that you have to work through? Does the center provide guidance? Think about enterprise-wide analytics. A workforce analytics team isn't the only analytics team in town. There'll be risk analytics. There could be customer analytics. How are you going to engage with all of those different analytics teams? Because there's great opportunity to learn and share from all of those other teams. I'm seeing an emergence of enterprise-wide analytics teams, actually, where they're all put together with a dotted line structure, a matrix structure, to leverage from the benefits of skill sharing, knowledge sharing, and the like. And be really clear on what your core versus your non-core activity is, because it can get really easily pulled into working on non-core activity. And whenever you're doing that, you're not doing the stuff that's adding the impact. You're not doing the stuff that adds the value. So think about your scope. Think about what your role is. Think about whether you're going to be looking at MI, BI, analytics. Do you include culture in your remit? Do you include the colleague surveys, etc.? Understanding that fit within your organizational design is really key. In terms of process, I think one thing I learned really early was to understand where I was going to get demand for work from, and demand for work that I wanted the team to do. So how will you generate demand? Is it push or is it pull? Will you go out and source demand for new projects, or will you look at the analytics and decide yourselves, look, here's an opportunity? For us, we started off with pull, so we'd go out and ask people what they wanted. Trouble with that is, I didn't like the questions they were asking me to work on. So yes, we have to do some of that, but more and more we're using push. So the team are looking for opportunities and getting that balance between push and pull. Lessons learned. Yeah, remove the non-core as quickly as possible. If you're trying to build an advanced analytics team and you're spending all of your time building hindsight, backward-looking reports, and when you go out to the business and ask them what they want and they say more reports, it can be really kind of soul-destroying. So find a way to move onto the core. In terms of shaping your remit and your scope, I found that forgiveness is easier than permission. Again, I'm not saying, it depends on your organizational culture. If that applies for you, it was okay for me, and I could just kind of crack on. One of the things you're going to need to do is be resilient and make mistakes and just push on, and somebody will tell you if you're going wrong on this kind of stuff. And develop organizational-wide alliances. Don't try and do this as a silo. You're going to need to build really strong alliances across your groups. In terms of data, again, I think in my early days, we spent too much time just looking at people data. A lot of the questions that we were asked were all to do with people data. We want to know more about talent. We want to know more about progression. We want to know about remote working. Actually, I want to solve business problems as well as HR problems. And so that means I need non-people data as well, and I need to be able to combine the two. So think about where you can source non-people data, whether it's financial, operational, customer data, you name it. Also look externally. Don't be tied to what you can find internally, but look at where you can source external data from, particularly in terms of benchmarking. Be very aware of the importance of data's access and security. People data is hugely sensitive, as you all know, so think about the security controls that you need to put in place. And of course, invest in data quality, accuracy, and availability. In terms of analysis, this is where I was thinking about that kind of roadmap to maturity. Often people say, well, we're going to start with hindsight. We're going to start producing some reports. We're going to start looking backwards to see what's happened, what the trends are. Then we'll move into insight, where we'll drill down. And then we'll move into foresight in 5-6 years' time, where we'll start to predict and prescribe. I think you can do all of that at the same time. Not brilliantly, if you're anything like me and our team, but you can start. You can start to build a portfolio of value-add hindsight reporting at the same time as dipping a toe into predictive and prescriptive. So one of the things that we've been working on is looking at mental health absence rates. And rather than looking backwards to report trends on mental health absence, actually trying to understand the causes of mental health absence so that we can better at predicting where we anticipate seeing spikes in mental health absence so that we can take actions to prevent it. Lessons learned for me. Don't wait for data perfection. It's the best excuse in the world not to do anything, just to say we don't have all the data. You're never going to get all the data. But again, if you don't make a start, then the investment that you may have secured will be taken away. Tailor your solutions to stakeholder needs, not your preference. Notice I said need, not wants. They'll tell you what they want, but that's not likely to be the right thing. That's not perhaps what they need. So consult with them, talk to them, and understand really what they need, rather than what you want to show them. I was tempted sometimes just to show off with something nice and shiny. I thought it was brilliant. Stakeholders didn't like it because it didn't address their needs. And that final point, insights alone are not good enough. We're not here to produce interesting things that people go, wow, that's interesting, and then park. We want them to do something with it and to drive impact. Notice how many times I'm going to say impact. I've counted them. I know how many. There's a prize at the end, a small prize. Technology. So I think, again, the temptation was to go out and buy loads of new tech. And I know we've got some vendors here. But absolutely, there's value already in what you have. It's unlocking that value. Going out to see what's available within your organization that you can tap into before you go out and spend lots of money on new tech. I think also, think about how you're going to democratize insight and analytics. It's very easy to build a central team with all of the knowledge and all of the power, and they've got all the numbers, they've got all the data, we've got all the insights. But actually, you can create so much more impact if you can democratize that, if you can put it out across your organization. And technology is a great way of doing that. I think of a kind of a layer of insight and analytics where, yes, the top, a central team may be doing the most advanced analytics, but actually put data into the hands of users, into the hands of line managers and into the hands of colleagues, so that they can make decisions on a day-to-day basis, driven on workforce data, but helps them be more productive, to save costs, to have a better career, whatever it may be. So look to see how you can use technology to allow for self-serve. And then, of course, there's the thing about the future. As much as we know what the future is going to be, we know it's not going to be what it looks like today. There's new technology emerging all of the time. And so I think it's really important that you build a vendor network. You may not have the money, the investment funding at the moment to be able to go and buy it, but at least if you're aware of what's available, you may be able to identify opportunities to use it as you're talking to your business areas. And I think that kind of shows the business that you're in touch with what's going on, you know about the latest trends, you know about organizational network analysis, you know about natural language processing, and you know a man who can if somebody says, well, look, we need this stuff. And you can bring those in quickly. And develop a coherent technology roadmap. It's, again, it's like Christmas, isn't it? You get all of these presents, all of this tech. You can go out and buy it all if you have lots of money. But actually thinking first, what's the story? What do I want to build? How will I infiltrate analytics and insight into my organization? So you build a roadmap for technology rather than being seduced by shiny new toys. The other thing I would say is don't use technology in lieu of developing capability in-house. There are some brilliant tools out there, and that, yes, over time, you could imagine they will replace the need for data scientists in HR analytics teams. But actually, I think before you bring those tools in, to leverage the value of those tools, you need to build in-house capabilities in your team. You need to have the bench strength in your team to make the most of that tech. Don't be seduced by a shiny new toy. And remember the business challenge. Again, it's easy to say, look, managing director, we've found this tool over here. Look how fantastic it is. Look how whizzy it is. Look at the colorful charts. But what's the business problem that they're seeking help on? That's the starting point. The technology should be the enabler, not the thing that you go in and present first thing. Stakeholders. So this role is fantastic because it allows us to touch pretty much every corner of an organization. Group-wide engagement. But of course that comes with challenges because it means there are thousands of stakeholders. Whether it's your CHRO, whether it's your HR exec, MDs of the business areas within your organization, functional areas, IT, you're going to need their help, finance, you're going to need their help, legal, analytics teams across the organization, unions and work councils, depending on where you are. And don't forget the managers and employees either. They've got a view and they've got an important perspective that can be really useful. So develop a plan, develop a framework for how you're going to touch base with as many stakeholders as you possibly can and understand their business needs and challenges. HRBPs. Any HRBPs here this morning? Fantastic. So you are absolutely critical. Just said that because you're here now. You're absolutely critical. You're the eyes and ears for an analytics team. I've got 20 in my analytics team, but we've got about 80 to 100 HRBPs. They're the colleagues in the organization that understand the business much better than an analytics team. They understand the business challenges. They're the ones that can identify opportunities for analytical projects. But a lot of them are fearful of data. It's different to what they're used to. This is a new world. Expecting them to do analytics is something that can kind of put people off in the HRBP population. So absolutely critical, again, I think, is developing a real plan to educate, inform, and enthuse your HRBPs. Get them excited about the value of analytics and how it can make them look brilliant in front of their managing directors, their business areas. Equally, spend some time with them. Understand their perspective too. At a lot of conferences like this, you'll hear sessions on HRBP enablement, and it feels as if we're having to teach and preach to HRBPs. And very little is said about how analytics teams can do more to understand the roles and challenges of being an HRBP. And I think walking a mile in their shoes will really, really help as well. Help them to develop their own abilities to self-serve, and show them that there's no need for them to be data scientists. That's not their role, but to work together with them to co-create hypotheses once they've identified a business problem, leave the advanced analytics to a specialist, but then recommend the actions together. Come up with a joint series of recommendations to present to the business and get their buy-in. And we found it really useful. 70 HRBPs, some of them are data savvy, others are not, but we've identified the ones that are real advocates for analytics, and we've seen them as champions to go out and promote the story amongst their peers. Whoops, sorry. Just lessons learned on that one. Okay, team. So, an infinite numbers of different roles and structures that you can create within your team, but certainly you will need something along the lines of the ones here. Somebody with data science experience, somebody who can turn data into a story using interesting visualizations. Translators, an increasing role that we're seeing, somebody who can translate complex analytics to a business colleague. Project managers, some of these projects can last for a year and beyond. So actually having somebody who can put in proper project management governance to make sure that you're sticking to the milestones, the progress that you require. And building, in my mind, building a center of excellence, a go-to team for the business, so that they know before we make a big strategic business decision, we need to involve this center of excellence. We need to understand the workforce implications to make sure we're not missing a trick. Typical skills and knowledge that you'll need in a team, of course, BI and data science, HR domain knowledge, of course, business and commercial acumen. So it's not enough to just be a data expert. Within the team, it doesn't need to be in the heads of all the same people, but within your team, you need people with a business sense, a commercial sense, and a financial sense. Brilliant communicators who can influence throughout the organization and have a consultancy style. As I said, you'll get lots of demand for things that they want, but how do you consult with them to define what they really need? And storytelling with data is really important. If you want to turn the analytics into action, you need to be able to storytell. So for me, we've developed a tribe approach. I'm not looking for the unicorn of a colleague with all of those skills on the side. I'm looking for a collection of colleagues who between them possess those skills. And then I put them together on different projects to complement each other's strengths. And it avoids me having silos, and it allows me to load balance, and I can get more done through the team. And for me, it's about passion and pride. I'd rather have somebody who's passionate about what they're doing, and I can coach them and train them, and we can send them on courses to learn the techniques. But it has to start with a passion, and they have to be really proud of what they're doing. If you've got that attitude, then the aptitude can come. So impact, because if you do all of that, but you don't have any impact, then you've been wasting everybody's time. So I think there's two ways to think about this. There's the kind of the HR angle. So analytics absolutely can help HR develop its own strategy, the talent strategy. How do you identify talent? How do you nurture talent? How do you acquire talent? What does the talent market externally look like? What are the required skills and capabilities for the future? How are the proficiency levels changing? And you can support HR become an increasingly value-add partner to the business, a true commercial partner, adding value, seen as the equal to finance. So the CEO needs their CHRO and their CFO before they make a big decision. You can think about the employee life cycle and look at analytical opportunities all the way through, from attraction through to alumni. But then there's the business angle as well. Helping business leaders make better decisions. Which location do we need to put in a new site? How do we improve our call handling times? How do I meet more customer needs? How do I reduce my costs? How do I improve productivity? Put real-time data into their hands to help them make those decisions and be seen as the team that can provide strategic input. Lessons learned. Yeah, securing a sponsor for your big projects. It's not going to work for everyone, but where you have either an HR exec or a business leader sponsoring one of your projects, you are much more likely to drive the impact that you want. They're bought into it right at the start, they're engaged in it, you're updating them throughout, there's an increased likelihood that they'll take the actions at the end of it. And then once those actions have been done and implemented, monitor, track, and report. So over time, you can build up a portfolio of impact that you're creating. Some of it qualitative, some of it quantitative. So just to finish, how am I doing for time? Okay. So identify and deliver some quick wins. Especially if you're new into this and you're still trying to form the team, look for some little snippets of insight that you can share really quickly that will make people go, wow, I didn't know that. I want to know more. And then you've got people on the hook, and then you can start to build from there. Develop and draw upon a network of external peers and partners. People like everyone in this room. My LinkedIn contacts have gone through the roof since I've done this role. Attending conferences, meeting new people, and I get maybe 1 or 2 calls a week where I'm talking to different people doing the same job in different organizations where we're helping each other out. So really friendly, open community. Because it's new, people are quite happy to share. And I get calls from all over Europe, and after speaking to them at conferences, can you help me with this? Can you help with that? And likewise, I go out and ask for help from them. So we're not competing for this space. We're competing for analytics to be seen as something critical to a business decision-making process, so we can help each other. Be resilient. This is going to be a tough journey. I had a full head of hair when I started this role. Don't fear mistakes. That you're going to make them anyway, but just learn from them and help your team to learn from them as well. Give them a safe space. Prioritize ruthlessly. Only do the stuff that's going to have an impact. And that's easy to say and really difficult to do, but it's really, really important. Push your team towards the higher value activity at the expense of annoying a few people in the short term. Back to that passion and pride. As much as you have that passion and pride, build that within your teams, recruit that into your teams, and that will really help, especially when the going gets tough. And keep learning, not just your team, but yourselves. This is a fast-moving environment. It's new stuff all the time. That's why it's so exciting. But keep in tune with the latest developments, the latest thinking. Attend conferences like this. Use LinkedIn. Use your peer network to stay abreast. Secure business leader sponsorship for your key projects. Otherwise, there's a danger that all of your fantastic work will sit on the shelf gathering dust. And that's the last thing you want to do. Bring business leaders in right from the start and ask them to sponsor your work. Embed ethics and data privacy right from the beginning. Don't think I'll do that later. But think about an ethics charter or something along those lines where every piece of work is assessed from an ethical perspective, not just at the beginning of a project, through the project, and at the end, because you only need to make that mistake once and go over the line in terms of ethics, and you lose all that credibility. So don't leave that until 6 months, 9 months. Do that tomorrow. Think about ethics. Track and measure the return on investment. And scream and shout about it. Tell everybody, this is the impact that this team is having on this organization. This is the impact on costs, on productivity, on employee experience, on our ability to attract talent, on our ability to promote talent, to shape our culture. You yourselves act as an ambassador for the value of workforce analytics. I spent the first 6 months of my role traveling around all of the sites in London that we've got offices, talking about the value of analytics. They'd never heard of it. Workforce analytics, what's that? So I had to be that champion. Many of you in this room will need to be that champion to go out into your business and talk about the power and the value of workforce analytics. Enable your HRBPs to make data-driven decisions. It will reduce the work coming into your team that is lower value if more of your HRBPs can do more themselves. So help them to become increasingly data savvy, leaving you and your team to focus on the more complex analytics at the kind of predictive and prescriptive end. And obsess about impact. I told you at the beginning that my title was Head of Strategic Workforce Planning and Workforce Analytics, and I got bored of saying that. So we changed the name of our team to Impact 16, to put impact right at the beginning of what we do, to remind our colleagues that we're all about impact, to remind our stakeholders about impact. The 16 is, we had analysed that colleagues at our group spend 16% of their lives working for Lloyds Banking Group. So we said the purpose of our team is to drive impact through the 16% of our colleagues' lives that they're working for the group. Obsess about impact. And that's it. Hopefully back on time. Thank you very much. I'm back on the panel later if you have any more questions.